When my wife passed away, I secretly kept the inheritance of $17 million and also the mansion in Miami Beach that was in my name. Upon returning from the funeral, my daughter-in-law threw my suitcases into the garage. "Now you're going to share the dog's bed." I simply nodded. Then I decided to do something that makes me glad you're here. Follow my story to the end and comment from which city you're watching me. That way I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Charles and I'm 60 years old. I never thought that the most painful day of my life would also become the day I discovered who my family really was. It was a rainy Tuesday in October when we buried Rebecca. 42 years of marriage vanished under that cold drizzle that seemed to mock my grief. Throughout the entire ceremony, I maintained the composure that Rebecca would have expected from me. I greeted the mourners, thanked them for their condolences, and held my grandchildren's hands when they cried for their grandmother. Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, stayed by my side during the funeral, but not for support. Her calculating eyes constantly scanned the attendees, as if she were cataloging who might be useful to her in the future. When the minister mentioned Rebecca's generosity toward her family, I saw how she clenched her jaw. Michael, my son, seemed lost in his own world of grief, not noticing his wife's machinations. The ride home was silent. I sat in the back seat of Michael's BMW, watching the streets of Dallas pass by, which had been my home for decades. Jennifer drove with cold efficiency, her perfectly manicured nails occasionally drumming on the steering wheel. From time to time, she exchanged meaningful glances with Michael through the rearview mirror. When we arrived at the house, a beautiful two-story property in Highland Park that Rebecca and I had bought 20 years ago, I noticed something strange. My suitcases were stacked by the garage door. At first, I thought someone had moved them by mistake during the funeral preparations. "What are my things doing here?" I asked, pointing to the 3 worn leather suitcases that contained the little I had packed to stay a few days with them after the funeral. Jennifer stopped dead in her tracks, turning toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Charles, I thought it was obvious. Now that Mama Rebecca isn't here, things are going to change a bit around here." Michael seemed uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze while nervously smoking. "Dad, it's just that Jennifer and I have been talking, and what Michael is trying to say," Jennifer interrupted, her voice taking on a condescending tone, "is that now that we're responsible for you, we need to establish some ground rules. This house is very large, and frankly, maintaining it requires a lot of money." I felt as if I had been slapped. "Responsible for me, Jennifer. This is my house, Rebecca and I. It was your house." She cut me off sharply, "But Rebecca is no longer here, and according to the will we read with the lawyer, everything passes to Michael as the only child. We are the owners now." The lie came from her lips with an ease that left me frozen. I had been present when Rebecca drafted her will. I knew exactly what it said, but apparently Jennifer had constructed a completely different version for Michael. "Jennifer, I think there's some confusion," I started to say, but she raised a hand to silence me. "There's no confusion, Charles. Look, we understand this must be difficult for you. Rebecca supported you all these years, and now that she's gone, obviously you have nowhere to go or how to support yourself. That's why Michael and I have decided you can stay." The way she said stay sounded more like a sentence than a generous offer. But she continued, heading toward the suitcases. "You'll have to stay here in the servants' quarters next to the garage. The master bedroom is now ours, and the children need their own spaces. We hope you understand." Michael finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Dad, it'll be temporary just until we get organized." I looked at the room they were referring to. It was small, damp, and had been used mainly for storage. It had a rusty single bed and a small window that looked directly onto the back alley, where garbage trucks made noise every dawn. "And naturally," Jennifer added, examining her nails, "we'll expect you to contribute to the house. It's not fair for Michael to carry all the expenses of supporting you. You can help with cleaning, cooking, taking care of the children when we need them, earn your place here." The humiliation was complete. In the space of an afternoon, I had gone from being the man of the house to being treated like an unpaid domestic employee. My own grandchildren, Emma age 12 and Dylan age 10, looked at me with a mixture of confusion and pity that broke my heart. That night, while unpacking my belongings in that depressing room, I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since Rebecca's death, I cried. I didn't cry just for her, but for the realization that the family I had sacrificed so much for saw me as a burden. What Jennifer and Michael didn't know was that Rebecca had been very careful with her finances. The last 5 years of her life, she had worked tirelessly to secure my future, knowing her heart was weakening. There were accounts in my name, properties that only I knew about. And yes, there was a mansion in Miami Beach that she had bought as a surprise gift for our 40th anniversary. She never got to tell me about it. I found the papers among her personal documents a week before the funeral, but that night, with the sound of Jennifer laughing loudly in my bedroom and Michael doing nothing to defend me, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to let them think they had control. I was going to let them treat me however they wanted, and when the exact moment came, I was going to show them exactly who had the real power in this situation. The first 3 months after the funeral were the most humiliating of my life, but also the most revealing. Each day that passed, Jennifer showed more clearly who she really was. And I became the silent observer of my own degradation. My routine began at 5:30 in the morning. The room next to the garage was freezing in winter and suffocating in summer, with no thermostat of its own. I would get up before everyone else to prepare the family's breakfast. Jennifer had made it very clear that if I wanted to earn my place in the house, I had to prove my usefulness. Charles, she would tell me every morning as she came down the stairs in her expensive silk robe, make sure the coffee is ready by 7 o'clock sharp, and Michael wants his eggs Benedict, not simple ones. The children need packed lunches, and I have that parent meeting, so I need you to iron my blue dress. Never, please. Never, thank you. Just dry orders as if I were her personal employee. Michael had completely changed after his mother's death. Where before he had been a considerate man who at least acknowledged my efforts, now he avoided looking me in the eyes. When I tried to talk to him about the situation, he always had an excuse. "Dad, I'm very busy with work," he would tell me, checking his phone while I served him coffee. "Jennifer handles these household things better. I trust her judgment." Her judgment. Her judgment was to treat me as if I were invisible. One morning, while cleaning the living room, I heard Jennifer talking on the phone with her sister Diane. She was standing by the window with a cup of coffee in her hand. Coffee that I had prepared, complaining about her burden. "It's so annoying, Diane. The old man is here all the time, shuffling around the house like a depressed ghost. Michael feels guilty, obviously, but I told him we have to be practical. We can't support one more person without them contributing something." She paused, laughing at something her sister had said. "You know how expensive those senior places are. Besides, he cooks decently and keeps the house clean. It's basically having free domestic service. I just have to put up with his sad face from time to time." I stood paralyzed behind the door with the cleaning cloth clutched in my hands. Free domestic service. That's what I was to her. But what hurt me most was seeing how my grandchildren gradually began to treat me differently. Emma, who had always been my shadow, now seemed embarrassed when her friends came to visit and saw me cleaning. "Grandpa," she whispered to me one day while I was folding laundry in the laundry room, "why do you live in the small room now? Mom says it's because you can't afford your own house. How do you explain to a 12-year-old girl that her mother is lying? How do you tell her that the grandfather who used to take her shopping and on vacations is being treated like a servant in his own house?" "Things changed when your grandmother died, my love," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "But don't worry about me, I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. Each day that passed, Jennifer became crueler and more brazen. She had started inviting her friends to lunch at the house, always asking me to serve the food and clean up afterward. "Charles, bring more champagne for the ladies," she would shout at me from the dining room, as if I were her service staff. Her friends looked at me with that mixture of pity and superiority that I knew very well. One afternoon, Brenda Morrison, one of her friends from the club, stopped me in the kitchen. "Excuse me, dear," she said with a condescending smile. "Could you bring me some more ice and maybe some additional napkins?" When I returned with what she had asked for, I heard part of her conversation with Jennifer. It's such a difficult situation, Jen, but I think you're handling this with a lot of grace. Not all women would be so generous to take care of their father-in-law like this. Jennifer sighed dramatically. It's a sacrifice, Brenda, but Michael feels it's our Christian duty. Although, frankly, sometimes I wonder how much longer we can sustain this situation. The house is expensive to maintain, and now with an extra person. Have you thought about other options? Brenda asked quietly. Well, Jennifer lowered her voice. There are some very nice places for seniors here in Dallas, places where he could have people his age, activities. It would be better for him, really. My blood froze. They didn't just want to humiliate me. They were planning to get rid of me completely. That night, while lying awake on that uncomfortable bed listening to the street noises, I made an important decision. I had been postponing something I knew I had to do. The next day I would make a call I had been avoiding. Rebecca had left everything very organized, but there were documents that only I could access. Accounts that needed my signature, properties that required my attention. I had been so overwhelmed by grief and then by the situation at home that I had left everything in the hands of the estate executor. But it was time for Charles Torres Thompson to stop being the victim and become who he really was, a man with resources, dignity, and options. Jennifer had made a mistake in underestimating me. She thought she knew the whole story, but the truth was much more complex than her small mind could imagine. The next day I would start planning my liberation, but I would do it so silently and carefully that no one would suspect anything until it was too late to stop me. The call that changed everything I made on a Tuesday morning while Jennifer had gone to the spa and Michael was at work. The children were at school, so I had the house to myself for the first time in months. Mr. Thompson, the voice of Fernando Martinez, Rebecca's lawyer, sounded surprised to hear my voice. I've been waiting for your call. It's been 4 months since the funeral, and there are urgent matters that require your immediate attention. I sat on the edge of my narrow bed, my hands shaking slightly. Fernando, I've been processing everything. My family told me that the will left everything to Michael. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Fernando cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sir, I think we need to talk in person. There's very important information you need to know, and it's not appropriate to discuss it over the phone. Can you come to my office this afternoon? That afternoon, while Jennifer thought I was at the supermarket buying ingredients for dinner, I sat across from Fernando's mahogany desk in his office in the financial district. The documents he showed me left me breathless. Rebecca had not only left me well cared for, she had made me a very wealthy man. Your wife was extremely meticulous, Fernando explained, showing me document after document. The Highland Park house is completely paid off and is in a joint trust that includes your name. Michael has residence rights while you live, but the property is yours. My eyes filled with tears. So why does Jennifer say that? Because Michael probably didn't fully understand the terms when he read a preliminary copy. Fernando shook his head. Rebecca was very specific. She wanted to ensure you would never be vulnerable or dependent on anyone. Fernando continued explaining. There were bank accounts in my name worth several $1 million. There were real estate investments, stocks, bonds. And then came the biggest surprise of all. The Miami Beach property, Fernando said, sliding a thick folder toward me. Your wife bought it 3 years ago as a surprise gift. It's an oceanfront mansion, fully furnished, with maintenance staff. She wanted to take you there for your 40th anniversary. The photograph showed me a dream house. White walls, high ceilings, enormous windows overlooking the turquoise ocean. It was larger and more beautiful than the Dallas house. Rebecca had spent a fortune on it. How much is all this worth? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Conservatively, between the property's investments and bank accounts, you're looking at close to $17 million, Mr. Thompson. I sat in silence processing the information. $17 million. While I slept in a servant's room and cooked like a servant, I owned $17 million. Why didn't Rebecca ever tell me anything? Fernando smiled sadly. She said she wanted it to be a surprise for when she was no longer here. She wanted to make sure you had the freedom to do exactly what you wanted with your life, without depending on anyone. I returned home that afternoon with my mind spinning. Jennifer was in the kitchen reviewing bills with a worried expression. "Where were you?" she asked me sharply. "You were supposed to go to the supermarket. You don't have anything in the bags. I had to run some errands." I lied, heading toward my room. "Well, I hope you brought something for dinner because we have guests tonight. Michael's boss is coming with his wife, and I need everything to be perfect." That night, while serving canapés to Jennifer's guests and listening to how she boasted about her house and lifestyle, a strange calm came over me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt powerful. During the next 2 weeks, I began to observe Jennifer more carefully. Her habits, her routines, her secrets. And that's when I discovered something that would change everything. It was a Friday afternoon. Jennifer had said she was going to her yoga class, but something in her behavior seemed suspicious to me. The way she had dressed up more than usual, the extra perfume, the secret smile. On impulse, I decided to follow her. I saw her drive not toward the yoga studio, but toward the Omni Hotel downtown. My heart raced as I watched her enter the lobby confidently. I waited a few minutes, then entered too. I saw her immediately sitting at the hotel bar with a man who was definitely not Michael. He was younger, well-dressed, and the way they touched left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I hid behind a column and watched them for half an hour. I saw how he handed her something. They looked like documents. I saw how she reviewed them carefully, nodding. I saw how they kissed before separating. That night, Jennifer came home from yoga with a satisfied smile, telling Michael about her excellent relaxation session. During the following days, I began to pay attention to other details. The whispered phone calls that Jennifer ended abruptly when someone entered the room, the documents she kept in a small safe in her closet, the frequent outings for errands that lasted hours. One afternoon, while cleaning her room, I found something that confirmed my suspicions. She had left her laptop open, and on the screen was an open email. "My love." The message from someone named David Rivera said, "The divorce papers are almost ready. We just need to wait a little longer to be sure about the inheritance. Once we're clear about how much money there really is, we can proceed. Michael doesn't suspect anything, does he?" My blood froze. Jennifer was not only humiliating me and planning to put me in a nursing home. She was planning to divorce Michael and take what she thought was his inheritance. I quickly took photos of the email with my phone, my heart beating so loud I feared someone would hear it. That night, while lying in my narrow bed, the puzzle pieces began to fit together. Jennifer had orchestrated everything from the beginning: the humiliation, the cruel treatment, the plans to send me to a nursing home. Everything was part of her strategy to keep me away while she manipulated Michael and planned her escape with the fortune she thought he had inherited. But Jennifer had made a fatal mistake. She had completely underestimated the wrong man. The next day, I made another appointment with Fernando. It was time to start my own plan, and this time, I wasn't going to be anyone's victim. What happened on Thursday morning was like a bomb that exploded in the middle of the farce we had been living for months. Michael came home early from work, something he never did, and his face had an expression I had never seen before. He looked between confused and furious. I was in the kitchen preparing lunch as always when I heard him shouting from Rebecca's office. "Jennifer, come here right now. Come here." Jennifer, who was upstairs getting ready for another of her mysterious outings, ran down the stairs. "What's wrong, honey? Why are you shouting? What is this?" Michael had a pile of documents in his hand and his voice trembled with anger. From the kitchen, I could see how Jennifer instantly paled when she saw the papers. "Michael, can I explain?" "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me for months, that my father isn't a burden we have to support, but that he's a millionaire." The silence that followed was deafening. I dropped the knife I had in my hand, and the sound of metal against the marble floor echoed throughout the house. Michael continued, his voice getting louder. "I found these documents in Mom's desk. Did you know that Dad owns this house? Did you know he has bank accounts I can't even calculate? Did you know he has a mansion in Miami Beach?" Jennifer tried to regain composure. "Michael, honey, Obviously, there are some things we didn't understand well when. No, Michael shouted, throwing the documents in the air. There are no misunderstandings. It says clearly here that my father inherited millions of dollars, and you made me believe he was a poor widower we had to support. At that moment, I knew my charade was over. I walked slowly toward the living room, drying my hands with the apron. Michael looked at me with an expression of pain and shame that broke my heart. Dad, is it true? You have money. All this time you've had money. Before I could answer, Jennifer intervened desperately. Michael, he deceived us. He made us believe he needed help when in reality, I deceived you. For the first time in months, my voice came out strong and clear. Jennifer, you told me this house was now yours. You told me Michael had inherited everything. You put me to sleep in the servants' room. Michael sat heavily on the sofa, putting his head in his hands. My God, what have we done? What you did, I said, keeping my voice calm, though my heart was beating 1,000, was show me exactly who you are when you think you have power over someone. Jennifer, realizing her world was crumbling, attacked desperately. You manipulated us. You let us treat you like that knowing you had millions. You're a cruel and calculating man. The irony of her words would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Michael lifted his head, looking at me with eyes full of tears. Dad, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us? Why did you let us treat you like that? The question hurt me more than all the months of humiliation combined, because my own son, my only real family, had participated in my degradation. Because I needed to know, I finally answered. I needed to know how you were going to treat me when you thought I had nothing. I needed to know if the love you professed was real, or if it was just convenient. Jennifer turned to Michael, her eyes shining with panic. Michael, you can't believe this. She's trying to manipulate you. We're your family, we're your priorities. But Michael was no longer listening to her. He got up and walked toward me. Dad, I don't know what to say. I feel so ashamed. Mom must be turning in her grave. Your mother, I said softly, knew exactly what she was doing when she structured her will that way. She protected me, Michael. She made sure I would never have to depend on anyone. Jennifer, seeing she was losing control of the situation, played her last card. Michael, remember everything we've built together. Think about the children. Are you going to destroy our family over this? That's when I decided it was time to reveal the other truth I had been keeping. Speaking of destroying families, I said, taking out my phone, I think there's something else Michael should know. The color completely drained from Jennifer's face. Charles, don't you dare. I showed the photos I had taken of the emails, the images of her with David Rivera at the hotel. Do you want to tell Michael about your boyfriend, or should I? The silence that followed was absolute. Michael took my phone with trembling hands, reading the messages, seeing the photos. When he looked up, the expression on his face was pure horror. David Rivera, the real estate broker, Jennifer. Have you been all this time? Jennifer began to sob, but they were tears of desperation, not remorse. Michael, I can explain everything. He was just helping me with some legal matters like divorce papers. Jennifer's mask finally fell completely. Her face contorted into an expression of pure hatred. Yes, divorce papers. Because I'm tired of living a lie. I'm tired of pretending I love you when you're a weak man who lets his daddy control him. Michael stepped back as if he had been hit. What? Your precious daddy has been playing with all of us, Jennifer screamed, all pretense of tears gone. She knew all along she had money. She let us humiliate her because she wanted to have something against us. She's a manipulator. No, I said calmly. I'm a man who learned the truth about the people who claim to love me. Michael looked between the two men in his life, and for the first time I saw my son really see who his wife was. Get out of my house, he told Jennifer, his voice barely a whisper. Your house. Jennifer laughed bitterly. It's not your house, idiot. It's his. It's always been his. And now that everyone knows everything, I don't have to pretend I care about you anymore. She took her purse and headed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned to me with a poisonous smile. Congratulations, Charles. You won, but you lost your son in the process because he's never going to forgive you for making him go through this. The door closed behind her, leaving Michael and me alone in the most uncomfortable silence we had ever shared. The days after Jennifer left were strange and tense. Michael had temporarily moved to the guest room and I had returned to the master bedroom, my master bedroom. But the house felt like a battlefield where no one knew exactly where the lines stood. Michael barely spoke to me, not out of anger, but out of shame. I saw him struggling with guilt every time our eyes met. The children, confused by their mother's sudden disappearance, asked questions that neither of us knew how to answer. "Grandpa, why did Mom leave?" Emma asked me one night while I was helping her with her homework. "Sometimes adults need time to think about important things," I answered, not knowing what else to say. "But is she coming back?" The question hurt me because I knew that, regardless of my feelings toward Jennifer, these children loved her and didn't deserve to suffer for their mother's actions. It was Dylan who, with the brutal honesty of a 10-year-old, asked me the question that broke my heart. "Grandpa, Dad says you have a lot of money now. Does that mean you're not going to live in the small room anymore?" Michael, who had been listening from the door, entered with red eyes. "Dylan, go to your room, please. I need to talk to Grandpa." When we were alone, Michael finally broke down. "Dad, I don't know how to ask you to forgive me for this. I don't know how to live with myself knowing what I put you through." I sat next to him on the sofa, the same sofa where Rebecca and I had watched Michael grow up, where we had celebrated his successes and consoled his failures. "Michael, what I need you to understand is that I chose to stay quiet. I could have stopped everything at any moment. But why didn't you? Why did you let us treat you like a servant when you had millions in the bank?" The answer was complex, painful, and I knew he wasn't ready to hear it all. But he deserved an explanation. Because I needed to know if you loved me for myself, or if you loved me because it was convenient. I needed to know if you respected the man who raised you, or if you only respected what I could do for you. Michael covered his face with his hands. "I failed the test, didn't I?" "You didn't fail it, son. You learned from it. There's a difference." During the next weeks, we tried to establish a new normalcy. Michael was seeing a therapist trying to process not only Jennifer's betrayal, but his own role in my humiliation. The children were slowly adjusting to the idea that their parents weren't going to reconcile. But Jennifer wasn't done with us. The first sign was when the children returned from their weekend visit with her, quieter than usual. Emma had swollen eyes as if she had been crying, and Dylan didn't want to tell me about his time with his mother. It was Michael who finally told me what had happened. "She's telling them you destroyed our family," he told me, his voice full of contained anger. "She's telling them you could have prevented the divorce if you had been honest from the beginning. Jennifer's manipulation hadn't ended. Now she was using my grandchildren as emotional weapons." The final confrontation came on a Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer showed up at the door unannounced, but this time she wasn't alone. She brought David Rivera with her, and both had a folder of legal documents. "Charles," Jennifer said with a fake smile, "we need to talk." Michael wasn't home and the children were at school. It was just me against the two of them, but for the first time in months I didn't feel intimidated. "Come in," I said, opening the door for them. "This should be interesting." They sat in my living room as if they owned the place. David, a man in his 40s with overly styled hair and a salesman's smile, opened his briefcase. "Mr. Thompson," he began, "we've come to make you an offer we hope you'll consider carefully." "An offer?" Jennifer leaned forward, her eyes shining with what she interpreted as a last chance for victory. "Look, Charles, I know things between us didn't end well, but we have to think about the children. They need stability. They need both their parents together. And," David continued, "we've developed a proposal we believe would benefit everyone. Jennifer is willing to return to Michael and rebuild the family, but we need certain guarantees." He slid a document toward me. It was an agreement where I committed to transferring a significant amount of money, $3 million, to a joint account controlled by Michael and Jennifer. In exchange, Jennifer would return home and forgive past transgressions. The audacity left me speechless for a moment. "Are you blackmailing me?" I finally asked. It's not blackmail, Jennifer responded sweetly. It's an investment in your family's happiness. Think about it, Charles. The children would have their parents together. Michael would be happy, and you would have your family intact. Isn't that worth $3 million? And if I don't accept? David and Jennifer exchanged a significant look. Well, David said softly, then we'd have to explore other legal options. We could question the mental competence you had when you allowed yourself to be treated so badly having resources available. We could suggest there are reasons to worry about your ability to make financial decisions. The threat was clear. If I didn't give them money voluntarily, they would try to take it legally by questioning my mental sanity. Jennifer smiled, believing they had me cornered. Also, she added casually, the children have expressed a lot of confusion about this whole situation. It would be terrible if they had to testify about their grandfather's erratic behavior in court. There was the final threat, using my grandchildren against me. I got up slowly, walked to the window and looked at the garden that Rebecca and I had cultivated together for decades. Do you know what's the saddest thing about all this? I finally said without turning toward them. What? Jennifer asked, her voice tense. That you think you know me. I turned toward them and something in my expression made David move uncomfortably in his seat. Jennifer, during all these months that you humiliated me, that you treated me like a servant, that you planned to put me in a nursing home to keep money that was never yours, do you know what I was doing? She looked at me with distrust. I was learning exactly who you are. And David, I turned to him. Do you think I don't know you have gambling debts for more than $200,000? Do you think I don't know this isn't the first time you've tried to scam an elderly widower? David's face paled. So here's my offer, I continued, my voice acquiring a steel tone. You're going to leave my house right now. Jennifer is going to sign the divorce papers without asking for a penny, and both of you are going to disappear from our lives forever. Or what? Jennifer jumped up, her mask falling once again. I smiled, a smile that would have made Rebecca proud. Or I show the relevant authorities all the evidence I've compiled about your fraudulent activities, Jennifer. And David, I show your wife. Yes, I know you're married. All the photos of your adventures with married women. The silence that followed was absolute. You played with the wrong man, I said softly. Now get out of my house. 6 months after that day, I'm sitting on the terrace of my house in Miami Beach, watching the sun set over the Caribbean. The water is such a perfect blue it seems unreal, and the warm breeze carries the scent of jasmine growing in my garden. Rebecca was right. This place is paradise. The transition wasn't immediate or easy. After Jennifer and David left my house that afternoon with their tails between their legs and their plans in ruins, I had to make the most difficult decisions of my life. Michael divorced Jennifer within 2 months. She didn't fight. She had no choice after the evidence of her infidelity and fraud plans came to light. The process was clean and quick, exactly as I had planned. The children were the hardest part. Emma and Dylan deserved an explanation they could understand, one that didn't turn their mother into a complete villain, but also didn't minimize the truth. Adults sometimes make bad decisions when they're scared or confused. I told them one afternoon while we were making cookies together in my kitchen. Your mom made some decisions that hurt the family, and now she has to learn to live with the consequences. But can we still love her? Dylan asked, with that simple wisdom children have. Of course you can, I answered, hugging him tight. Love doesn't turn off just because someone makes mistakes, but love also means protecting ourselves from people who repeatedly hurt us. Michael struggled more than the children. Guilt was consuming him, and for weeks he begged me to stay in Dallas. Dad, let me make it up to you for everything. Let me take care of you like I should have from the beginning. One night, while we were having dinner alone after the children had gone to bed, we finally had the conversation we had both been avoiding. Do you forgive me? He asked with tears in his eyes. Michael, I said, taking his hand, there's nothing to forgive. You were manipulated by a woman who knew exactly how to control your emotions. What matters now is that you learned who you really are when faced with difficult decisions. But I hurt you, humiliated you, treated you like you treated me, like Jennifer taught you to treat me. And when you knew the truth, you immediately wanted to repair the damage. That tells me everything I need to know about the man you are. But despite the forgiveness, despite the renewed love between us, I knew I had to leave. Dallas was full of painful memories, and I needed a fresh start. More importantly, I needed Michael to learn to be independent, to make his own decisions without the influence of a strong man, neither his father nor his ex-wife. "Why Miami Beach?" he asked when I told him my plans. I showed him the photos of the house Rebecca had bought for us. "Because your mother wanted me to be free to choose my own adventure, and this is my choice." Michael smiled for the first time in weeks. Mom was always smarter than the rest of us, wasn't she? We established a plan. Michael and the children would come visit me during summer vacations and Christmas holidays. I would return to Dallas for their birthdays and important events. We would have weekly video calls, but mainly we would live our own lives. Before leaving, there was one last matter to attend to. I established an educational trust for Emma and Dylan. When they turned 18, they would have access to funds for college and to establish themselves in adult life. But the money would come with conditions. They had to maintain good grades, do community service, and most importantly, write annual letters reflecting on the lessons they had learned from this family experience. For Michael, I transferred the Dallas house completely to his name, along with a fund sufficient to maintain it and raise the children comfortably. I didn't want him to feel dependent on me, but I also didn't want him to struggle financially as a single father. "It's too much, Dad," he protested when he saw the documents. "It's not too much. It's exactly what your mother would have wanted." The day I left Dallas, Michael and the children took me to the airport. There were no dramatic tears or heartbreaking goodbyes. There was a peace in all of us that we hadn't felt in years. "I'm going to miss you, Grandpa," Emma told me, hugging me tight. "I'm going to miss you too, my love. But now we have something to look forward to. Your beach vacations." Dylan handed me a letter he had written. "So you don't forget us," he said seriously. I opened it when the plane took off. In his childish handwriting, he had written, "Dear Grandpa, thank you for teaching us that strong people are those who help others, not those who hurt. We love you." Now, 6 months later, my life has a completely different rhythm. I wake up when I want, not because someone else needs breakfast. I walk on the beach every morning, something I never could do when I was constantly serving others. I've started taking painting classes, something I had wanted to do for decades but never had time for. My house is full of life in ways I never expected. Maria and Carlos, the couple who maintain the property, have become dear friends. Their grandchildren come visit me on weekends, and I teach them English while they teach me better Spanish. I've started doing volunteer work at the local hospital, helping translate for American tourists who need medical attention. It's rewarding to use my life experience to help others, but on my own terms. Michael calls me every Sunday, and our conversations now are real, honest. He tells me about his dates. He started dating again, very cautiously, and about the children's achievements. I tell him about my adventures, my new friends, my plans for the future. "Dad," he told me last week, "you sound so happy." I am, son, for the first time in years. I am. Jennifer tried to contact me once, about 3 months after I moved. The text message was predictable, a mixture of self-pity and a last attempt at manipulation. It said she had reflected on her mistakes and wanted to make peace for the sake of the children. I deleted it without responding. Some people don't deserve second chances, especially when they already wasted so many first chances. Jennifer had repeatedly shown who she was when she thought she had power. That information was all I needed to know about her for the rest of my life. This morning, while drinking my coffee on the terrace, I thought about Rebecca, about how she had so carefully planned my freedom, about how she had known, even without knowing the specific details, that I would need the financial strength to defend my dignity. "Thank you, my love," I said to the wind. "You knew exactly what you were doing. At 60 years old, I've learned something that took me decades to understand. True wealth isn't the money in the bank, though it certainly helps. True wealth is the freedom to choose how you want to live and who you want to surround yourself with. I have both now, and for the first time in my life, no one, absolutely no one, can take them away from me. This afternoon, Emma and Dylan arrive for their spring break. We're going to build sandcastles, search for shells, and cook together in my kitchen. I'm going to teach them to sail in the small sailboat I bought last month, and when they ask me about their mother, as they inevitably will, I'll tell them the truth, that sometimes life teaches us difficult lessons about the people we love, but that those lessons make us wiser and stronger. The sun is setting now, painting the sky oranges and pinks. I have a dinner to prepare, a book to read, and a new life to live. Jennifer once told me I had won. She was right, but not in the way she thought. I won my freedom. I won my dignity. I won the wisdom of knowing exactly what I'm worth, and that, it turns out, is priceless.